Good morning. Welcome, commissioners, CDE staff, and members of the public watching remotely. I'm Lily Jarvis, the chair of the Instructional Quality Commission. I call this meeting to order. The IQC meeting logistics will follow Senate Bill 189, Chapter 44, Statutes of 2022, which allows state bodies that fall under the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act to hold public meetings that are covered by Bagley-Keene with web conferencing and audio conferencing. Therefore, today's IQC meeting is a video conference meeting with a live webcast. Public comment on the items of today's meeting agenda may be provided during the meeting by dialing 667-770-1523, and the following prompt will provide a participant access code. The access code is 651905. Callers will be added to a queue. The operator will notify callers when it's their turn to provide public comment. If possible, we recommend members of the public dialing in for public comment continue to view the live stream of the meeting for a better understanding of the meeting status. When it's your turn, please mute the livecast audio. When giving public comment, please state the following: the commenter's first and last name, your affiliation with any organization, if any, and then make your public comment. Again, the phone number is 667-770-1523. The access code is 651905. The phone number and access code will also be announced at the start of public comment for each item. This is also outlined on the March 15th, 2023 IQC agenda posted on the IQC webpage. Now I will introduce each commissioner participating in today's meeting. When I call your name, unmute your microphone and confirm your attendance. Then mute your microphone again. Commissioner Cristina Andre.
Present.
Commissioner Mariana Astorga Almanza.
Present.
Commissioner Anita Friedman. Commissioner Lindsay Gotanda. Commissioner Sharice Guerra.
Present.
Commissioner Jennifer Hicks.
Present.
Commissioner Janet Lanning.
Present.
Commissioner Neil McGaffey.
Present.
Commissioner Alicia Regosa.
Present.
Commissioner Nikki Reina Guerra.
Present.
Commissioner Ku Vang.
Present.
Commissioner Marcy Winnower.
Present.
Commissioner Kimberly Young.
I'm present.
Commissioner Erica Cepeda.
Present.
Student Commissioner Mira Chacradeo.
Present.
Assembly Member James Ramos. Senator Ben Allen. Thank you. Now, Commissioner Chacradeo will lead us in the salute to our flag.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we're going to overview today's agenda. The agenda for today remains unchanged and includes the following: approve the January 25th, 2023 IQC meeting minutes, approve the amended bylaws of the Commission, hear a presentation on the instructional materials piloting guidelines, and hear a presentation on Senate Bill 154, the Expression Options Diploma Project. At this time, I want to give some procedures regarding today's video conferencing meeting. During Commissioner deliberation today, I will call on each Commissioner by name. Only the Commissioner who is speaking will have his or her microphone unmuted. All other microphones will be muted. Commissioners will use the raise hand button if you want to speak and make a comment. Wait until you are called upon to unmute your microphone and speak. All votes will be done by roll call. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. The approval of the minutes for the following meeting, January 25th, 26th, 2023. The public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to give public comment on the minutes. You have the minutes of the January 25th, 26th, 2023 IQC meeting before you. If you have substantive changes, please present them now. If there are minor changes not affecting the content, please email them to Denise Figueroa, our IQC liaison. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
The motion has been made by Commissioner Hicks. Is there a second to the motion?
Second, I second.
The motion has been seconded by Commissioner Chacradeo. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any public on the motion?
There is no public
To join
comment.
to the sub-conference,
I believe we're ready to vote. Denise, can you please conduct the roll call?
Yes, excuse my voice earlier. Chair Jarvis,
Yes.
Commissioner Andre,
Yes.
Commissioner Storgal-Mansa,
Abstain.
Commissioner Guerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanning,
Yes.
Commissioner McGaffey,
Yes.
Commissioner Dragosa,
Yes.
Commissioner Reina Guerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Vang,
Yes.
Commissioner Winower,
Yes.
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Zepeda,
Yes.
Student Commissioner Chacradeo.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Denise. Next is item 1E, my chair report. Well, once again, I'd like to welcome my fellow commissioners to our first virtual IQC meeting of the year. And in light of Women's History Month, I'd like to recognize and lift all of the amazing and determined women in education who so passionately and actively participate in shaping education. It goes without saying that we are entering a very exciting time in teaching and learning. What I mean by this is that it's the time of the year when students begin to show how much growth they've had, and the educators around them begin to rally to celebrate their academic development and their overall development. Sometime between now and the end of the school year, please take a moment to celebrate the successes of our students, our schools, our districts, our organizations that support education, and appreciate the dexterity by which educators continue to navigate the impact of COVID-19 on learning. Switching gear, with respect to the literacy roadmap, I venture to say that my fellow commissioners might also be curious about it. What is its scope? the purpose, its timeline, etc. And I wonder if the IQC will be directly or indirectly involved in any aspect of the process. And we look forward to hearing about that. Now I will hand it over to our Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Cotton.
I believe at this time, Deputy Superintendent Cotton is not in the Zoom meeting just yet. So if we can circle back and hear her report when she does return.
Okay.
Here.
Thank you for that. All right, so next is item 1G, the Executive Director's report. Executive Director Torres?
Thank you so much, Chair Jarvis. And good morning, Commissioners, State Board of Education members, Clever Woods and Lewis, Seaford and CDE staff, and those members of the public joining us today. I believe it's important for us to make an acknowledgement of this land in an effort to always remember that we must do our best to never forget California's first peoples, who are the original stewards of this land. The California Department of Education headquarters, as well as the location from where I'm joining this meeting virtually, are on Nisenan land. I have some Seaford-related updates for you. We have a new vacancy as Hamed Razawi, who you met in person in January, has resigned as the administrator of the Clearinghouse for Specialized Media and Technology. He's moved to another division, so he's still making good work with the California Department of Education and picking up some very important work related to community schools. Marla Clayton-Johnson, our administrator of the Curriculum Frameworks Unit, has stepped in as the interim administrator for that office. So thank you so much, Marla, for pulling double duty and leading both of these offices until we can secure a new administrator. We're also still in the process of filling our 2 vacant education programs consultant positions. And I'm confident that I'll be introducing these new staff to you at our next meeting in July. And speaking of July, California will have a signed budget by the governor and agreed to by the legislature by then. So I'll have a better idea of what became of any proposed cuts to the arts, music, and instructional materials discretionary block grant and the proposed update to the digital learning integration and standards guidance, and more information on the literacy roadmap that Chair Jarvis mentioned in her report. On the topic of guidance, I feel that we're close to the end of this very long road to the mathematics framework. The CDE, the State Board of Education staff, and the Region 15 Comprehensive Center, led by WestEd, have been diligently working on ensuring that public comment from the second field review are considered and reflected. Once the framework is adopted by the State Board of Education, we can collectively begin our planning and our work related to the mathematics instructional materials adoption. Something new that I'd like to share with you is that in February, the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond, announced the hiring of 2 literacy co-directors, Nancy Brynelson and Dr. Bonnie Garcia. Both have been involved greatly in literacy. Related to your work, Ms. Brynelson was one of the writers of the English Language Arts English Language Development Curriculum Framework, and Dr. Garcia established a literacy improvement network for the 40 schools in her special education, 40 school districts, in her special education local plan area. Both of the CDE literacy co-directors will be introduced at an upcoming CDE literacy webinar on March 23rd, starting at 4 p.m. I'm looking forward to our collaboration together to improve literacy in our great state. So those are all the updates that I have for you. Thank you for the opportunity to share, and I'm sending things back to you, Chair Jarvis.
Thank you, Dr. Torres. Now we're going to move on to item 1H, the report from the State Board of Education. Good morning.
Good morning. So wonderful to see all of you commissioners virtually. Again, I so enjoyed our time together in January. I am here along with my fellow board member, Brenda Lewis, to bring you just a little bit of an update from the State Board of Education. I'd like to first start by saying that we had a 2-day meeting that actually was last week. My goodness, it was last week. And the first day of the meeting was a study session. And the focus of the study session was assessment, and more importantly, assessment innovations. There was a lot of dialogue, and we also had presentations from 3 very well-known scholars in this area on how we can look at our state assessments and to make them more, I would say, aligned and relevant with what we know students will need to know and do and how they'll need to be able to share their learning. So some of the innovations that have been dialogued is how to better integrate performance tasks into the school year as part of the statewide assessment. We also looked at, again, a variety of other things so that the state assessment, the SBAC as we know it, is not something that is just done as a summative at the end of the year that has no impact on students or teaching and learning, but a tool that can be integrated along with teaching and learning and that can help to inform the instructions that students receive. So that was day 1 of our meeting. Day 2 of our meeting kind of picked up from that, and we had an update from the accountability unit of CDE in relation to the accountability work plan for 2023. So just a couple of highlights to share with you on that. There were updates given to the board regarding the English Learner Progress Indicator, also known as the LP. I'd like to share with the commissioners that the LP cut scores for the area of change are now being developed, and we will be entering into our first year, if you will, in 2023 of having a performance level grid for the English Learner Performance Indicator. Another portion of that discussion was how after that is in place, we may want to comprehensively look at the accountability and areas for English learners and to see if there are any adjustments that need to be made with cut scores or any other areas related to that. But the purview of the board was to, of course, move forward with the cut scores for change. And then again, once we have the full performance level grid, engage in those conversations that are necessary. Another area that was shared was an update for the College Career Indicator. Just wanted to let you know that there are more career-focused measures that will be considered and how to best capture that, including civic engagement, which Member Lewis will speak to in just a moment. The final area on the accountability work plan that we discussed in relation to the dashboard was the graduation rate indicator. We are looking at, and CDE will be exploring and sharing with the board what it may look like for us to move to a multi-year graduation rate indicator as opposed to the 4-year, 5-year cohort that is used for the graduation rate right now. One of the primary purposes of this is to better support and better articulate performance for our DAS schools, which are not accountability schools, but our alternative schools. And because we have not been allowed to continue with that 1-year graduation rate for alternative schools per the U.S. Department of Education, we are looking at how a multi-year graduation rate might be of support to accurately articulating how students are doing in those schools as well as all of our other high schools. So that was the accountability portion. And the last thing that I will share with you is that we also looked at a revision to the local indicator related to school climate priority 6. Annually, the board does look at the rubrics, evaluation rubrics and whatnot related to our local indicators. And the revisions that you will see moving forward is that it will be the expectations that LEAs will not only have their school climate data, but that they will administer school climate surveys to the appropriate grade level spans annually, as opposed to every other year. and also that they will disaggregate the data from the school climate surveys based upon the student groups that are called out in Ed Code. And in their prompts, they will respond to any learnings that have come from looking at the data as a whole and disaggregated amongst student groups and even amongst schools within school districts. So that was the accountability assessment arm of our meeting, and I'd like to turn it over to Member Lewis to provide the remaining updates for you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. And I will just give you an update on the final few items from that second day of our meetings last week, and the first of which is an update on the State Seal of Civic Engagement. And you may recall that the State Board of Education approved the criteria for awarding the State Seal of Civic Engagement. And in the school year 2021, that's when our local education agencies began offering the State Seal of Civic Engagement to their students. And now the CDE reports they're in their third year of fulfilling the insignia request. That's the insignia that goes on the diploma for the students who earn the State Seal of Civic Engagement. And so they're in their third year of providing that, and also in the third year of supporting expansion for the, I'll use the acronym, SSCE program. And the CDE reported that there has been an overall increase in the number of insignia requests during the 21-22 school year. And there's also been an increase in the number of districts that are requesting the insignia. So that means more districts are getting involved and putting out the criteria for their students to be able to earn that seal. And we also heard that the CDE is working on how to incorporate the SSCE into the career and college readiness indicator. And so that's going to require a lot of thought and a lot of planning. And so that work will be ongoing throughout this next upcoming school year. The second item I'll report on is we also heard an update on the California Serves program administered by the California Department of Education in collaboration with California volunteers. And the purpose of the California Serves is to promote access for high school seniors to who are enrolled in our districts to be able to participate in service learning projects to coincide with earning that State Seal of Civic Engagement through the service learning. And if you want to research additional information about that, you can use the search term on the California Department of Education website to get a little bit more information about that. But that was exciting news to give our students another opportunity to engage in service learning to earn that seal of civic engagement. And the final item I'll report on is the Community School Partnership Program. And we approved $45 million additional dollars in community school planning grants. And if you recall that the $4 billion that California has invested in the Community School Partnerships Program is the largest investment in the nation. And the goal of that program is really towards ensuring the success of our high need students and their families by bringing together educational partners, nonprofit organizations, community members together just to provide a whole child approach to meeting the needs of our students and their families. And those needs include mental health services, social services, as well as supporting high quality instructional services and supports for our students. So again, the Community School Partnership Program is moving along, and excited about being able to approve $45 million additional for planning grants for more districts coming on with the partnership program. And that concludes my portion of the report and the total SBE report for our update on our activities at the last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Lewis and Board Member Glover Woods. That was a lot. You guys were very, very busy, I can tell. Next is item 1I, approve the amended bylaws of the Commission. Public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. Now I will turn it over to Executive Director Torres.
Thank you again, Chair Jarvis. The IQC bylaws were last approved by the State Board of Education in 2009, with technical amendments that were made in 2012. And since then, the bylaws for the IQC have not been revised. At the January IQC meeting, the bylaws were shared with the Commission, and a discussion was ensued of general areas that need updating. A directive was given for CDE to take the discussion and propose any edits, including any technical ones. The proposed bylaws were included in the agenda virtually for this meeting. Some things considered included anything that may have changed since 2012, such as the inclusion of a student member or the provision of virtual meetings while adhering to the Open Meetings Act. An example is in Article 1, the addition of virtual meetings during an active executive order by the governor, the addition of the student commissioner in Article 2, and specification of existing commission liaisons in Article 7. Something else discussed was the need to specifically add language around collaboration between the IQC chair, executive director of the IQC, and the State Board of Education liaison. One area of proposed update in Article 3A includes how the executive director of the State Board of Education, the executive director of the IQC, and members of the commission can recommend the chairperson, but still know that it's the commission that elects the chairperson. Another area where this is emphasized is in Article 5C, for those three parties to confer regarding the work of the commission. There were also technical edits made throughout the bylaws, including specifying Robert's Rules of Order when necessary, updating for gender-neutral language, and including grammatical clarifications. So that's the quick, brief summary of changes in the document that you've been able to preview prior to this meeting. As mentioned earlier, you all have a copy and track changes. I'll now hand the meeting back over to Chair Jarvis.
Thank you so much for the summary of all of the updates. And thanks, Seaford staff, for engaging the draft. Is there any discussion on the amended bylaws? I do have a question. One is a simple comment on Section 2, duties of the commission members. I think there might be a word missing at the end of the first sentence, ending in August 31st of the following. Maybe the word year might be included in there.
I also noticed that as well.
Okay.
Sorry,
And then,
can you repeat what section?
yeah, so it's on Section 2, duties of the commission. So it starts with the commission consists of 18 members. And I believe the end of that sentence ends with August 31st of the following, and then there's a period. I'm suggesting that we add the word following year. I think that's what's meant there. Any other comments or discussion? Okay. So now I need a motion to approve the amended bylaws of the commission.
I move that we approve the amended bylaws of the commission. Commissioner Jarvis.
Thank you. Commissioner Andre has moved to approve the amended bylaws.
I second.
And Commissioner Guerra has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
The public comment line for this item is now closed. I believe that we are ready to vote. Denise, would you please call the roll?
Chair Jarvis?
Yes.
Commissioner Andre?
Yes.
Commissioner Stargalamanza?
Yes.
Commissioner Guerra?
Yes.
Commissioner Hicks?
Yes.
Commissioner Lanning?
Yes.
Commissioner McGaffey?
Yes.
Commissioner Raygoza?
Yes.
Commissioner Reyna Guerra?
Yes.
Commissioner Vang?
Yes.
Commissioner Winower?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Zepeda?
Yes.
Student Commissioner Chakradale?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Next is item 1J, Instructional Materials Piloting Guidelines. It's a presentation, and the public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. Now I will turn the meeting over to Jennifer Bentley, Education Administrator.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to really quickly introduce Alejandro Hernandez and Michelle Fennell, who are education program consultants in the Instructional Resources Unit, and they'll be giving a presentation on the instructional materials piloting guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Chair Jarvis. My name is Alejandro Hernandez. And I'm going to let my co-presenter introduce herself.
Good morning, members. I'm Michelle Fennell. I'm also a consultant in the Curriculum and Frameworks Instructional Resources Division.
Thank you for the opportunity today to bring to your attention the need to update a document that's titled Guidelines for Piloting Textbooks and Instructional Materials. A few weeks ago, Ms. Fennell and I were tasked with updating this document, which was first created in 1989. I'll start by mentioning just a few highlights about the document. This document has played a key role in informing California educators about California legislation and regulations concerning instructional materials. This document, titled Guidelines for Piloting Textbooks and Instructional Materials, has remained valuable for this long because the recommendations have held up over time. These include suggestions for determining what instructional materials to pilot, suggestions for piloting, as well as additional considerations that reflect best practices. Because these suggestions are sound, this document has been referenced in most, if not all, content-specific instructional materials toolkits developed by the California Superintendents, formerly known as the California County Superintendents Educational Services Association, or CSESA. Unfortunately, over time, several of the resources the document cited are no longer available. I do want to mention just one example of a resource that was included in the guidelines document that's no longer available. And that's the Toolkit for Evaluating Alignment to Instructional and Assessment Materials, developed jointly by ACHIEVE, the Council of Chief State School Officers, and Student Achievement Partners. The capture that you see on the slide shows that the original document was first created in 1989, and it has been updated periodically to reflect changes to legislation and guidance issued by the California Department of Education. The last time this document was updated was in 2015. As a final point, I'll mention that some of the terminology is also out of date.
Thank you, Alejandro. And so that brings us to today. So in order to make this document as useful as it has been, there are significant revisions and changes that will need to be made. And you as an IQC have an important role in suggesting and informing us of edits that you would like to have made to this document. This slide contains some examples of where revisions can be suggested, not all. So, for example, there may be references to legislation and regulations throughout this document that need to be updated, as well as any hyperlinks to essential resources that are from the California Department of Education that may need to be updated, as well as hyperlinks to any external relevant resources that you know of, reputable sources that can help guide and reflect current practices in evaluating and selecting standards aligned materials. And this is also
Michelle?
Yes.
I'm hearing an echo. Is it possible you have two devices on, or maybe turn down the volume?
I have two different Zooms on.
Thank you.
Am I illegible? Like, should I continue, or Alejandro, did you need to take over?
Michelle, just turn down the volume on your computer so that we don't hear the reverb, and we should be able to hear you still.
I apologize. Is that better? Or is there still an echo?
Still an echo, but I think it might be better. Can you turn your speakers off?
I don't have speakers on. It's just my computer.
Okay.
Is it going to be too echoey to continue?
I can make out what you're saying. Let's continue. Thanks.
Commission, are you okay with continuing? I apologize.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but you're comprehensible.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I can't hear it on my end. So. We're almost done. So as well as inclusion of any tools to facilitate the decision-making process for those reviewers who are looking at instructional materials to pursue. Go to the next slide, Denise. The next slide shows a schedule of events in which you as members of the IQC will have a role in the changes that are made to this document. So today we are having our initial discussion around this document where you will provide initial edits to this document and suggestions. Our CFERD staff will be taking notes on these edits. And then from now through June, CFERD staff will incorporate those proposed revisions into a new draft of the document. And at our July IQC meeting, you will have a chance to review that updated document, provide any other suggested edits, and then approve the document to the State Board of Education. We do not have a date yet for when that will occur, but the next step would be the State Board of Education to review that updated draft of the document, make edits themselves, and then approve that document or adopt that document. And I apologize for my sound issues.
All right. So at this point, we would like to open it up and we would like to invite the members of the Instructional Quality Commission to share and discuss any ideas or proposals they would like to make. Michelle and I and other CFERD staff will be taking notes. So opening it up now.
would like to say something. So I was very fortunate to participate in this process with the arts, the music adoption textbooks specifically. And this process took place virtually. And that's how I experienced the process. My understanding is that this process typically has taken place previous to COVID in person. But one of the things that I believe was different in the virtual meeting and in the deliberations and in the discussion was this very useful tool used for tallying that was given to the reviewers ahead of time, or maybe it was a document composed by Seaford staff, and that was brought to the deliberation process. And I found that tool to be an effective way to maximize the time during the deliberation process, so that the discussion and the deliberation could really take place without having to go through the perfunctory parts of tallying. And so I forget exactly what the document was called, but could that be something that could be part of the manner in which that could be included formally into the process moving forward?
Yes, it would be a matter of adapting it to serve within a document that people can download. And so what I'm hearing is you're requesting that a tool be integrated into this document so that people can know at least one way to assess to what degree the various criteria or standards are being addressed.
Yeah, and that tool was prepared for ahead of time. I believe it was by Seaford staff, having taken the input from the reviewers. And so when we showed up to the deliberations, we were able to review sort of ahead of time where the reviewers had agreed within those categories that you just mentioned. And I felt that really maximized our time. Yeah. I see. Oh, did you want to say something?
Sorry, I should have raised my hand, but I did want to just confirm. Yes, we did create a tool to be used in-house. It's called a summary tally sheet, where we were able to take feedback from the reviewers virtually, and then export that into Excel files, and then be able to perform certain macros on the data in order to format it so it was easy to see where there was agreement, where there may have been disagreement. So that kind of highlighted areas in the review process that needed to be discussed, which then, as you mentioned, helped to maximize the amount of time that the reviewers had. But while I have the floor, I do also want to make the distinction that this document, it is guidance for LEAs to do their local adoptions, and so we can definitely take things that we've done in statewide adoptions and include those in these guidelines, and provide suggestions on how to maximize and make things efficient, such as a summary tally sheet. Unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to create a tally sheet in general because of all the differences from content area to content area. But we can definitely provide screenshots and describe what it was that we created and how that was one way to maximize reviewer time.
Thank you. That's a great idea. Provide a sample. I see that Commissioner Guerra has her hand up.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could go back a few slides, Denise, to some possible revisions that we might want to ask for. Thank you. So I think the biggest one for me, obviously, is revising the legislation, regulations, and all of those things in there. I think definitely need to happen. I understand about hyperlinks, but I'm wondering, has there already been research done around new links or new resources, or is that something that you would want us to do as a commission? And I'm not sure who my question's directed at, who can answer that, but
well, thank you. So this is Alejandro, and I can start, and maybe Executive Director Torres can add. Part of the process, part of this process is going to be CFERT staff, and that's going to be led by Michelle Fennell and me. We're going to update in general in terms of legislation and guidance and guidelines, not just CDE created, but outside of CDE. County Offices of Education in California, and the Education Department for the United States, and so on. So we're going to do that work. So your point is well taken, and for everybody, you can be very specific, very precise in your recommendations, and feel free to also go broad. What would you like this document to accomplish?
Thank you.
I see Commissioner Chacradeo has her hand up.
Yes, so I had a question regarding like pre and post assessment. So for the piloted piloted materials and curriculum, who would develop those assessments? Would that be done at a statewide level? Are new assessments going to be created for these programs and for this educational material, or will it be done at the local district level? How would that work?
And again, I'm going to get things started and others can weigh in. The CDE, in this case, would not be creating any assessments or instructional materials. The purpose of this document has been and will continue to be guidance on how to review existing instructional materials and the correlated assessments that come with those materials that make up the program, the entire program, ancillary materials as well. So no new creation of assessments and such. It would be part of the review process to see what the publishers or other content curriculum creators have developed.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Hicks?
Thank you. A couple of things. First, I just wanted to underscore the value of the partnership with the California County Superintendents. Is often those subcommittees are the ones that really support the rollout of curriculum adoption and implementation of a toolkit with our districts as they do their local adoptions. In terms of feedback or revisions, a question or a possible revision in Section 1, the second paragraph under determining materials to pilot, the very last sentence says the steps identified below are critical to the process. I guess my question is critical strong enough? Should it be required? I know this has come up with LEAs before, kind of a question of, because it says critical, do they have to follow this process? So that's a general question.
I'm giving Jennifer Bentley and Mike Torres some time to maybe weigh in, but I can start. The wording of things like needed, must be implemented, critical, all of that is going to be reconsidered so that it is true, it holds true and aligns with the various toolkits for reviewing instructional materials that have been created. So the way I see this document is it existed before the toolkits. The toolkits move things forward so much that now this document needs to catch up to what the toolkits have accomplished. I hope that was clear. I hear what you're saying about the word critical. In the revisions, I anticipate that all of the language is going to be reconsidered and made current and true and aligned with the other toolkits. I hope that answers the question.
I'll just piggyback also on Alejandro's excellent response, is that we also need to be very careful about creating mandates. The guidance that we're providing is guidance, because we are, as you all know, a local control state. So we cannot mandate the usage of the guidance that we provide, but we can definitely share that these are best practices. So I think that's why initially the word critical was used. We can definitely elaborate on that and emphasize the importance of that. Unfortunately, are unable to mandate.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Bang.
Yeah, just a minor suggestion or something to think about would be in this document, it is only for kinder through 8th grade, and with the changes with the UPK and all that, I'm wondering if we should add TK as part of that as well in that grade, spans to reflect what's happening.
Thank you, Commissioner Bang. Commissioner Guerra?
I was just going to add that, there's a lot of references to English learners and English learner populations, but I do think we need to be more specific in talking about integrated and designated ELD within instructional materials. I'm not sure how that weaves into what is already here, but really calling out integrated ELD, which happens in all content areas, and as well as designated ELD. So just something to think about.
Thank you. Commissioner Raygoza?
I just had a question on the same section that was mentioned previously, section 1, determining materials to pilot, and how Alejandro had referenced that we might include hyperlinks to essential resources. Is this a place where we might include links to the frameworks that are that would be utilized in the selection of a particular subject matter? Is this also a place where we could put external or essential resources, external hyperlinks? Would this be a place to also maybe include like the English Learner Roadmap or things like that, so that we're focused on asset-based instructional materials? Maybe we can make links to those kinds of documents.
The answer is absolutely. And yes, I'm anticipating we're going to mention those resources in the content throughout the document. And I'm hearing a request to have a section of maybe related resources to compile everything. So I'm hearing that as well.
Thank you.
I have a clarifying question for Commissioner Raygoza. When you said embed the links, did you mean within the context of the text that is there, or were you thinking about like an appendix outside of the document?
That's a great question. I hadn't thought about that. But it might be, if there's an appendix, I think that would be great. People can go there and click on those links as needed, depending on, yes, the framework that they would be utilizing for the content matter. I think that's a great idea.
And in the spirit of aligning to the existing toolkits, Is it okay with the members of the IQC if those hyperlinks appear as they where they should throughout the contents of the document and compiled in an appendix or a section for resources? So they would appear twice.
That's not a bad idea, because initially that was my thought within the paragraph to put the link there. That was my initial thought. So my own opinion is that that's not a bad idea, because if you were reading through and you wanted to click right away, you could, rather than having to wait till the end, but you have the option for both. I like that idea.
And that is what has been done within the toolkits, some of the toolkits.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Young?
Thank you. Good morning. I have 2 points that I was thinking about as I was reading through the document. One, the notion of discussion between the representative committee seems to be kind of embedded throughout, but the language of discussion or of coming together in conversation about what reviewers are noticing isn't necessarily explicit anywhere in the document and any of the piloting steps that I noticed. And I know that we don't want to mandate things, but perhaps a suggestion in the same way that Commissioner Jarvis suggested and Dr. Torres suggested screenshots. I think that having some kind of ongoing communication is really important and really helpful to this process. And so I would hate for that to be lost in the language. That was one point. The other point was, I'm just wondering where folks would reach out if they have questions as to this process, and if there's a way to incorporate that anywhere in this document as well.
Commissioner Young, so your first point about embedding suggestions for the reviewers to discuss at critical points, that's well taken. And I'm sorry, your second point, it was about additional, oh yes, if they have follow-up questions and so on. We usually, in more recent documents, CFERT staff includes the contact information if additional questions arise, and it's usually the general CFERT email address.
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah. So. Okay,
that's perfect. I was wondering if that would be also, I don't know if I saw that, if that would also be included, just because until you kind of walk through this process, it can feel a little overwhelming.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Vang.
So just to add to what Commissioner Guerra shared earlier about the importance of adding integrated and designated ELD, as I'm looking through this document, I see content standards all through the documents, and my consideration or suggestion would be maybe also calling out explicitly looking for the ELD standards to support that aspect of the integrated and designated ELD as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Hicks.
Thank you. I was reflecting on Executive Director Torres' comment about this really being a guiding document or a resource of best practices. And one thing that I noticed that I'm wondering if we might consider adding is a section or more concrete language about how to engage families and parents during the piloting process. There is one line that refers back to Ed Code, but it's really about the selection of instructional materials. And I think that there would be a benefit to some best practices around parent engagement, specifically during the piloting phase of an adoption process.
Thank you, Commissioner Hicks. Any follow-up questions from CFERT staff at this point? Okay.
No questions, but I just wanted to take a moment to thank the Commission for their very careful review and their their recommendations to improve this document, and as we proceed and collectively put together a good resource for LEAs for local adoptions, and hope to bring you a wonderful product in July.
Thank you, Director Torres. And I know you're off to your meeting. Okay, I see that Commissioner Winnower has her hand up.
Thank you. I had a question about the inclusion of the guiding tools. It was the last bullet point on the slide of what our commission would be looking at. And my question is, I haven't seen the tools. Are there tools available now, or is that something in process?
I'm looking at the,
it's the last bullet point, inclusion of tools to facilitate.
Right. So that language is there because in the toolkits that have been developed for the ELA, ELD, science, history, math, they have incorporated tools that for facilitating discussions and decision making. So it's included here as a suggestion, as a nudge. Would you like to see something similar that already exists in toolkits in this document?
I apologize for not looking at the toolkits yet. I just wanted to say, having gone through quite a few piloting and textbook adoption, and I'm talking from the high school level, which isn't mentioned, and I understand this is hopefully pre-K through 8, but we still are looking at for guidance for high school adoption. One thing I think might be helpful is taking the important points in this document, maybe coming up with some type of an outline that can be followed, and perhaps Commissioner Regoza's suggestion about links to standards could live in a document like that. So just an idea.
Commissioner Winnower, and I apologize, I have a cough that I'm dealing with. The guidance for 912 is left out of this, the document that the guidelines, piloting guidelines document. And part of it is because it only focused on what was required many, many years ago. And this is one example where the toolkits that have been developed around several subject areas now address specifically what about 912 or instructional materials for subject areas that are not as big, let's say, as math. And I'm thinking of model curricula and other areas, you know, about, I'm going to stop there. So are you suggesting that we also include guidance for 912 and guidance that applies to subject areas beyond the core?
I would love that. I'm under the impression, though, that that type of a change may need a legislation in terms of looking at materials for 9 through 12. I think the information here is applicable to what's happening at the high school level. What I think what I was trying to say, and again, I'm saying this without having looked at the toolkits, if with somehow taking what's in this document, the very important points, and maybe perhaps creating an outline that LEAs could easily follow, and that maybe could be a place for links to standards and other very important information could be. As we know, everyone is so busy, and these pilots are very time consuming. So the more information we have readily available, the stronger these pilots are going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Winnower. Commissioner Regoza.
I just have a question or a comment rather on the section 1 determining materials to pilot number 2, where the paragraph says that the evaluation instrument should reflect criteria from the state, but it should also reflect district or site specific concerns such as organization of teacher materials, etc. And one thing I would like to suggest or wonder if this is the place where we might put really considering materials from the student lens, instruction, engagement, learning. We were recently going through previewing some science textbooks for our district, my most recent experience, and we've shifted into looking at the student engagement piece and standards and learning first, and then looking at teacher materials second to ensure that student learning is central, and then looking at, teacher materials and facility of the use of the materials. I think that's a really important lens to take when looking at materials. Would this maybe be a place to put some language that would impact that process?
Yes, and that point of view of prioritizing students and so on, I think fits in a variety of places. So in our notes, in my notes, I'm capturing your suggestion, and where it shows up, hopefully you'll be pleased in July.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I see Commissioner Andre.
Good morning. So I had a question. I believe it's under determining materials to pilot. That's section 1. And the number 3 that specifically talks about standards for evaluating instructional materials for social content. I followed the hyperlink, and I was just, I guess this is a clarifying question first, and then depending on your answer, I have a follow-up suggestion. In following the link, when you look up a publisher, it has a copyright year and then it has a termination year. I'm assuming that as the state board only approves those materials, is that for like a 10-year period, or is it until they're resubmitted, or what is the termination year?
Right. So let's take a recent example. The World Languages Standards and Framework were revised just recently.
Right.
The materials that the State Board of Education adopted, because they are aligned to the standards and the guidance in the framework. Once the standards and the framework are revised, then the materials instructional materials that were adopted 1 or 2 years ago by the State Board of Education, for the new set of standards and framework, they're not going to align. Right. They may align to a great extent, but not fully. And so that is why there's an end date.
I assume, okay, so my assumption was correct. And I understand that we cannot mandate LEAs, but is there a way to put language in there? Because one of the last sentences says an LEA may require a publisher to submit its materials for social content at the state level before the materials are adopted at the local level. Is there a way to say, something where that termination year is kind of what the explanation you just gave me is verbalized? And so there's that suggestion to check that expiration date and make sure that any materials that are being considered are, looked at for social content, because I'm afraid that some LEAs would just, put in a publisher's name, and because they see it come up, just assume, oh, there it is, it's state approved. I don't know if that's possible to do in that paragraph without being a mandate.
Right. So I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm taking down that request from an IQC commissioner, and we're going to incorporate that somehow, somewhere.
Thank you. That'll work for me.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Sharkadale.
Hi, so in the document under the determining materials to pilot section 1, that last bullet point where it says identify student diversity universal access in that section. So mind you, I'm just speaking from experience. This was 13 years ago when I entered, the California public school system as a kindergartner. And I noticed that students who had like bilingual fluency or who had proficiency in English, but also spoke another language at home were being placed into like English language learner programs. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be better if there was some kind of way of better determining like which students can be placed into those programs, because those resources could then be better concentrated on the students that actually need that support. So I'm not sure if there's anywhere in this document that would provide guidelines to educators or LEAs on like what I guess constitutes like an English language learner, because when you enter kindergarten, like these teachers have never, like the student is completely new to the school. So I'm confused on how that would work and like determining which students need that additional support.
So a few times now, the English learners have come up as a topic, and the need to be more explicit and so on. So what I'm writing down, what we're going to incorporate is more explicit guidance on what English learners are and considerations when serving them, including placement if it comes up naturally in the discussion in the document. And just remember, some of these considerations have already been taken up in the various toolkits. And one of the goals is to update this document so that it reflects some of the best practices mentioned in the toolkits. But noted, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reina Guerra is next.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm not looking at the toolkits right now, so it might already be included, but I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to include some of the kind of vetted evaluation reports that are already online. I'm thinking of Ed Reports, even though I don't know if Ed Reports has been vetted, or how that is, but I am thinking it might be a good idea to have that as an additional measure as we're evaluating the materials.
I must confess, I'm not that familiar with this topic. Can you articulate for us what you would like to see relative to vetting?
Sure. It actually comes from experience when we did our last math adoption in my district. At the very end of the adoption, after we had made a decision, we looked at Ed Reports and discovered that they had evaluated the curriculum that we chose, and there were things in the evaluation that I wish we knew as we were making our decision. It probably would have changed our decision. So that's where that comes from. And I believe we were specifically looking at Ed Reports when we did that. But I don't know if there are additional evaluation reporting organizations that are better. That's the one that comes to mind.
Right. So thank you for that. And we've taken note of that. At this point, I'll just mention that LEAs are not required to select from the SBE adopted instructional materials. And I think it's mentioned in this current document, and we will mention it again in the revision, because that is legislation. LEAs do have that option. However, a few years ago, I'm thinking 5-6 years ago, a document was created providing guidance for selecting instructional materials that were not adopted by the State Board of Education. So I'm thinking, correlating to what you just mentioned, bringing in some of that language, and of course hyperlink to that document so that people know what their options are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Raygosa.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on Commissioner Chacradeo's comment about the last bullet in determining materials to pilot around student diversity and universal access. And one thing that I have noticed in participating in previous adoptions is that many times the materials that are provided in a second language aren't as well developed, or maybe there's not as much provided for in the second language as the first. I know that's a difficult thing to do depending on the language of instruction, but considering that we have had the Proposition 58 passage for multilingual education, and we have Global 2030 as a goal. Is there some way, maybe in that paragraph, would that be the right place to put that when publishers do develop a second language, materials in a second language, that they do so in equity or parity with those of the English materials? It seems like a lot to ask, but when you're going through the process and you are providing a dual language program, and it's very difficult to find materials that are of the same caliber in the second language. So is there some way we can address that, maybe in that bullet point, or would there be another area where we could address that?
We'll take a look at if it fits there. I've taken note of the concern about the quality of the instructional materials being the parity and sometimes lack thereof when the instructional materials are found in a different language. I've taken note of that. I just want to remind the group that this is not a document for publishers. Okay. It's for LEAs reviewing instructional materials. So what I'm anticipating that we can do is incorporate language that highlights the need to have, for instance, teachers who speak that additional language be part of the review process, for example.
Good suggestion. Okay, thank you.
I just want to thank Commissioner Raygosa for bringing that point. I think it's very relevant, and have had similar experiences when looking and considering programs. Commissioner Guerra.
So Commissioner Raygosa read my mind. I was going to bring up a very similar concern around materials that are in an additional language. And, I think there is also something to be said about, I forget what Commissioner brought up around family engagement. And I think there should be some guidance around family engagement mirroring your student demographic. And something, some guidance around that, including, when you're adopting materials that are in an additional language, that you bring on families who speak that language. So again, not sure where it fits, or if there's a whole new section around material guidance that are in an additional language, especially as we get into the, it's difficult enough in the lower grades, but once you get into 6th, 7th, and 8th grade content area materials, I think it gets really complicated. So any support we can give our teachers and families, I think, would be helpful.
Right. Thank you for that. I did take note of that. Again, emphasizing the the participation of not just teachers who teach the content or in the language, but also families and students throughout. That's coming across clearly. And I'm not sure if it's possible to ask commissioners to send links to Denise of resources or just ideas that align with your recommendations. That would be certainly appreciated by Seaford staff, but I'm not sure if that's okay to do. I'll have to check in.
I think there was a suggestion by Seaford staff to find the process or the correct process, the compliant process by which commissioners can share links and ideas to support our discussion.
Yeah, hi, this is Jennifer Bentley. I'm the administrator of the Instructional Resources Unit. Right now, we're not taking any suggestions outside of this forum. If the State Board of Education decides different, we might be able to solicit later at a different date. But right now, all suggestions need to come through the public process right now.
Thanks for that clarification. Okay, I see Commissioner Winower.
Thank you. I just opened one of the toolkits and I realized that the toolkit answered my previous question, and it also has links to standards documents, which was mentioned before. I would like to make a recommendation that the toolkits are linked onto this document so that they're readily available to LEAs. Thank you.
Any clarifying questions for Commissioner Winower? Any other comments?
I have one more, sorry. So in terms of a resource, I was just looking really quickly since this is kind of our only chance. I know Californians Together created an English Learner Roadmap teacher toolkit. And I was just looking in here because I remember that they do give some recommendations around materials. So if you're looking for a possible resource, that might be helpful.
What's the title of the document?
The California English Learner, you can't see it. The California English Learner Roadmap. This one is an elementary school teacher toolkit, but I know they have it for middle school as well as high school, but for our needs, it would be middle school. And it's organized by the English Learner Roadmap principles. So it'd be in Principle 2 around instructional materials.
Thank you, Commissioner Guerra. Any follow-up questions for her? I have a question. Might it be possible to link the guidelines that one must consider when instructional materials have not yet been recommended by CDE? That might be helpful for LEAs who are, trying to promote multiliteracy with various languages where the materials may not yet exist. Might there be a place to make a link to that guidance on this document?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Alejandro, but that is this document, right? This is the guidance for LEAs to be able to adopt non-CDE or non-SBE adopted materials. This is that guidance.
Was that a question for me, Jennifer? Sorry, I lost connection, so I had to log in again.
So I believe IQC, or I believe Commissioner Jarvis's question was, can we link to, in this document we're discussing, to guidance on how to adopt materials that are not SBE adopted? Is that correct, Commissioner Jarvis?
Yeah, there was a reference to a different document that one can reference. So I was wondering if we can learn more about that document and then maybe discuss if it's appropriate to link it here.
I think that was mentioned a little earlier. I think I mentioned that a little earlier. I think that is on par. It was developed through CESESA. So it's on par with the toolkit. So it's, I would, if you're asking, is it appropriate? I think it is very appropriate because it's very, it's official and current guidance on selecting instructional materials that are not adopted by the SBE. Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. And I see Commissioner Raygosa has her hand up.
Yes, I have one more resource that we may want to link. I'm not sure if we have it already, but if we could link the Global California 2030 document to this resource. I wonder if this would be the place to do it, because it does talk about the importance of providing adequate materials, professional development, all of that, in order to reach our goal of, a multilingual state. Would that be useful in this document?
I've taken note of that, and yes, and what I'm hearing also, I apologize, is the an emphasis and a connection to additional guidance like the EL roadmap, and in this case, California 2030. So yes, wherever opportunities exist, also mention other current initiatives, legislation, and so on. Yes.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? I see your hand is still up, Commissioner Raygosa. Okay. And Alejandro, Michelle, or Jennifer, any further clarification you might need?
No, just a big, big thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you all for participating in this lively discussion, and thank you, Jennifer, Alejandro, and Michelle, for your presentation. Now, Denise, do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment.
All right, so before moving on to item 1K, Expression Options Diploma Project Presentation, I would like to suggest that we take maybe a 7-minute break and return at 11:35. How does that sound? Okay, see you in about 7 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Next is item 1K, Expression Options Diploma Project Presentation, Senate Bill 154. Public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. I will now turn it over to Executive Director Torres if he's here, and if he's not here, Jennifer Bentley.
I'm going to take over really quick for Director Torres. Thank you, Chair Jarvis. Director Torres was recently invited to attend a regularly scheduled work group tasked with implementation of SB 154, which requires the consideration of options to a high school diploma for students with disabilities who do not take alternate assessments. When asked if he knew of any forums to get information out about SB 154, he immediately thought of the IQC. So Commissioner Jarvis has agreed to add this presentation to our agenda today. For fear of spoiling too much in the presentation, I'm going to hand the meeting over to Zach Smith from West Ed, who is the lead on this initiative.
Thank you, Jennifer, and hello. Thank you for the time, Instructional Quality Commission. My name is Zach Smith. I'm a Senior Project Director in the Special Education Policy and Practice Division of West Ed. I'm here with my peer in this work, Leah Kenny, and I'll give her space to introduce herself in just a second. One thing we wanted to note is we've had a name change in SB 154, at least what we're calling this project, to alternative means to earning a diploma. So instead of expression options, it's alternative means to earning a diploma. This was the why behind this was just to keep in line with the Ed Code and some of the guidance that had been coming out regarding alternative means. So that's the key word there that we're wanting to look into. So just a note there, we're good to go to the next slide. Again, appreciate the time. So this is our internal West Ed team that's working on this project. We'll have external subject matter experts, key constituency representatives, and then CDE partners also working on this project. But just wanted to give you a chance to see the team. Also I want to pause here and give Leah space to also introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us. My name is Leah Kenny, and I'm a program coordinator at West Ed. I'm happy to be here today. Back to you, Zach.
Thanks, Leah. All right, so that's us and our nice picture. We are here. So what's the kind of the why behind us being here is we really just want to get the word out, share what we've been working on with this project, where we are in it, and then get any and all feedback or questions just so that we have clarity of communication. So that's our goal today, is just share how the project's going and what it is. All right, so yep, here's the scope of this work. We can go through the next one. All right, so the goal of the SB 154 project, the Alternative Means to Earning a Diploma project, is to create strategies and resources for California educators to provide students with an IEP alternative means for completing prescribed state graduation requirements for core coursework to earn a standard or regular diploma. So what we mean by this is we're just trying to provide those alternative means that would allow students to meet the rigor of a standard, but meet it in a way that works for them. And so that's the core focus of our work, is not to modify, but actually to accommodate, to keep the rigor levels high, keep the standards and the success criteria of the standards aligned. But again, provide guidance, provide resources to the field that equip teachers and educators and school sites to know how to provide alternative means for these students. All right, so we just wanted to provide a little visual of the challenge that we're trying to solve. So students across the country, because of IDEA, have individualized education plans that allow for them to have defined a myriad of supports. Again, a personalized plan for these students that allow for them to have a myriad of supports or a myriad of options in how they display their content, how they receive content, and how they access core coursework. Oftentimes, and unfortunately, in historic educational structures, those options or that flexibility that's defined in the IEP doesn't always show up in the design or in the access points of the curriculum. And so what we're trying to do is create that guidance or create those materials that would allow for students to have those access points, again, that align to the standards that students need to meet in regards to graduation, but would be personal or have the potential to be personalized for them through alternative means. So what this means, what the specifics are of the deliverables. So as a final outcome of this project, West Ed team and our partners will provide ready to implement course outlines, standard aligned rubrics, sample lesson plans aligned to state high school graduation requirements, and then example expression options that students might be able to utilize that would still adhere to the success criteria and the rigor of the standards that's defined within the California frameworks. So here's where I pass it over to Leah, and she's going to give everyone a snapshot of where we are in this project, Also, as an important note, it won't show up in the slide deck, but we've also shared a one-pager that goes with this slide deck that gives a visual example of the different phases of the project. But Leah, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Zach. We can go on to the next slide. Thank you. So far, this is a very brief synopsis of what Zach and I and our team at Wested has been doing over the last couple months. The very first thing we did was do a national scan of SEAs. So we looked at all states and territories, went on the SEA websites and found excerpts of legislative policy language relevant to alternative means and key strategies for alternative means. So whether they were using like core strategy, or if their strategies were unclear, and also looked at their SPP and APR, that's State Performance Plan and Annual Performance Report data, to look at the different graduation requirements put out by the state. And then what we did from that was we found 4 standout states that had different pathways, different graduation pathway options. So we landed on Colorado, Connecticut, New Jersey, and Vermont. And you can see under those states kind of like what their alternative means were for providing access to those graduation requirements. So example, for Colorado, they have a capstone project alternative diploma pathway, and like for New Jersey, a portfolio-based assessment. So these are just different examples of different graduation pathways that they provided. And then what we did from there was sorry, can you go back to the last slide? Is we interviewed folks from the SEAs in those states. So people both within the special education department, within the graduation department, or general ed, or different collaborative teams within the SEA, to kind of get a better sense of their strengths within what they view as their strengths within their graduation pathways, their challenges, and then kind of get an idea of like working like cross-departmentally within those SEAs. Okay, next slide. Another thing that we did was we sent out surveys to all of the LEAs within California. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of data there. And we sent out the survey asking for like district level graduation pathways. And so right now what we're doing is working on scanning all of the information that we have received from the LEAs at district level to come up with kind of the equivalent of what we did for the national scan, coming up with standout districts that are doing interesting, alternative, creative ways of giving those graduation pathways and figuring out kind of strengths and challenges that the district at the district level that we can support, or that CDE can support moving forward. Back to you, Zach.
Thanks, Leah. So now we just wanted to outline where we are in terms of next steps. So we're in the process of gathering focus groups with key constituencies across a myriad of populations within the state. So we have students with an IEP and their families. We're looking specifically for students who are on the cusp of graduating, so in secondary settings or have recently graduated. We're looking to interview and speak to teachers, secondary general education teachers, special education teachers, and college and career teachers, administrators both at site and district levels, community members, members of the IEP team, and then counselors, specifically secondary counselors, to just get a sense of what the needs are in regards to those materials that we would create through this project. So we're in the phase 1 needs sensing phase, even exemplified by the name change that I gave you at the very beginning of this presentation, where we're learning as quickly as I can and gathering as big of a coalition as we can in regards to set up and being prepared as we start to create resources, materials that can be used to establish how to do this. We can run those resources and materials through these different focus groups networks to get their feedback, adjustments, and voice. And then in addition to the focus groups themselves, we're also gathering subject matter experts as we start to narrow where we're going to focus in regards to graduation requirements. So one thing about this project that we're considering, we're working with CDE with, is to define the scope. Is it based around a course that historically has been a gatekeeper for students preventing their graduation? Is it a cluster of courses? We genuinely think that the scope of this would be good to start small and learn fast in terms of how to create alternative means for a specific course. So our team, both the CDE team and the WestEd team, is leaning that way. We just haven't confirmed as of yet with the group. That's one thing that we're working on in our next work group meeting here at the end of the month. Oh, and if you are interested in connecting and learning more about how to build more connections or get more information on the focus group process, we've listed Leah's email there for you. So that was our goal today. We really just wanted to share and what we've been working on and the scope of this work, and then just leave it open to you all if there's any questions, comments, and please know that how much we appreciate you and appreciate the time today.
Thank you, Leah and Zach, for your presentation. Commissioners, do you have any questions? I see Commissioner Garrett.
I just want to thank you for this work as a mom of a student, a senior actually, who is in the IEP process. I actually have an IEP on Friday for transition. This is really exciting, and I wish that he would have had access to something like this, so I really appreciate it. And I definitely will be in touch because this is important work for our students.
That's wonderful. Thank you, and please do be in touch.
Any other commissioners? Well, thanks again for your presentation. We very much appreciate it. Denise, is there any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment.
Thank you. Next is item 1L, individual commissioner reports. This will be a standing agenda item where commissioners can give a report on any committee on which they represent the IQC. This is also an opportunity for commissioners to suggest agenda items for future meetings. Would anyone like to speak? Okay. Next is item 1M, Commissioner Acknowledgements. Public comment for this agenda item is now open. Please follow the instructions on the screen if you would like to speak. Now I turn the meeting over to Sunshine Liaison Commission, Commissioner Lanning.
Thank you, Chair Jarvis. On February 17th, 2023, Commissioner Emeritus Danae Popovich passed away. During her tenure on the IQC, Danae worked on the 2021 California Arts Educational Materials Adoption and the 2021 Mathematics Framework. In 2021, she served as Vice Chair of the Ad Hoc Committee on the California System of Support. In 2022, she served as the Chair of the Science Subject Matter Committee and of the Ad Hoc Committee on the California System of Support. I didn't have the pleasure of serving on the Commissioner with Danae, but I know she will be missed. Flowers have been sent to her family on behalf of the Commission. Please let's take a moment of silence to honor her memory.
Thank you for that tribute, Commissioner Lanning. Now I'd like to turn our attention to recognize Student Commissioner Mira Chakradeo. Student members have a one-year term Subsequently, she will be termed out by the next IQC meeting in July. Mira began her tenure in September of 2022, with her first meeting being held virtually in November of 2022. Thankfully, we were able to meet in person for the January 2023 orientation meeting, where Mira was appointed to the Health SMC and also chair of the ad hoc committee on state board initiatives. Just want to say, Mira, it's been a pleasure to get to know you and to be part of your educational journey. Congratulations to you as you move on to the next part of your education. And we were just very pleased that you were able to impact the students of California and school districts with your participation and membership in the IQC. Congratulations to you. Now, would anyone like to say any words of encouragement and support and celebration for student member Shakradale? Commissioner Winower.
Thank you. Yes, I would just like to say I had the privilege of getting to know Commissioner Sacredero much better during our in-person meeting in January. And she is an impressive young woman, and we have not seen the last of her. So I just want to wish you all the luck finishing high school and for your future.
Thank you.
Commissioner Raygosa.
I also had the pleasure of meeting Commissioner Chakradeo and her mom when we were up north in January, and it was so nice to speak with her. You can tell that she has a bright future. I'm excited for what comes next for her and just would love to wish her all the best.
Thank you. Commissioner Hicks.
Thank you. I too had the opportunity to sit with Commissioner Shakradeo at our January meeting, and it was just a pleasure to get to know her. And just really want to thank her for her leadership. I think that the importance of student voice and all of the work we do at the state, at the local level is so important, and for our students to give up their time and their energy when they have so much going on to participate in processes such as these is so critical. So thank you so much for your time and your energy and your commitment to the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Hicks. Board Member Glover Woods.
Thank you. And just as everyone else who has spoken, I had an opportunity to meet Commissioner Shakradale in person in January, but I really enjoyed getting to know her through the interview process that she went through to be selected as a student commissioner. And as has been said, Commissioner Shakradale, your future is so bright. I need sunglasses. You are just an awesome person. It was a pleasure meeting you. It was an extreme pleasure having an opportunity to speak with your mother as well. And on behalf of the California State Board of Education, I wish you all the best as you move forward in your post-secondary work. And I will keep my eyes and ears open because I know we have not heard the last of Mira Shakradeo. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, Mira, would you like to say any words?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much. It has been an honor to represent over 6 million Californian public school students on the IQC. I've been a public school student in California since kindergarten. And I'm so grateful for all of the wonderful teachers, administrators, counselors, and school support staff that have taught and supported me throughout my time as a student. Having entered kindergarten at the beginning of this technological era, I saw how each year curriculum and learning materials adapted to make sure that students were receiving the skills and tools that we need to succeed in this rapidly changing world. I believe that the voices of students are of a paramount importance when it comes to developing curriculum. And I hope that in the future, more students will be able to get involved in the development of our own education. And I also recognize the importance of having educators such as yourselves investing in our education by making sure that we have the tools and resources that we need to succeed. To all commissioners, SBE members, CFERD, and CDE staff, thank you so much for going above and beyond to make sure that students are getting the best education possible. I speak on behalf of students when I say we are so grateful for all of the work that you do. I know that my term has occurred during a period between IQC initiatives. However, I'm so excited to see all of the good work that the IQC will continue to do in the future. It's been a privilege to see all of the work that goes on to develop the curriculum that eventually makes its way into our very own classrooms. Thank you so much for all of the work that you do and for your passion in improving the education of all Californian students. I mean, you all are truly wonderful, and thank you so, so much. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mira, for your words. You're truly an inspiration, and we're just all so proud of you, and we're all going to cheer you on. Now, Executive Director Torres.
I don't know how I can follow that, honestly. I just have to say, I love my job. I love working at CDE. I love still being able to impact education. No longer a classroom teacher, no longer get those feels, so to speak, those spiritual dollars you get when you get to interact with students and see them living up to their potential, and then be able to see what they're capable of, and then envision what their future might look like. And Mira, you're incredible. You're an inspiration to students. You're an inspiration to me, and I'm sure to all the commissioners here. As everyone has said, you have a very bright future, and we're looking forward to seeing you again in the world of education, because it is a small world, and our paths probably will cross again. So I don't keep talking. I'm just going to go ahead and present the certificate, because I'll talk way past the 12 o'clock end time for this meeting. We do have a certificate that will be mailed out to you in recognition of your service. And I know this is Zoom and there's a background and it's kind of difficult to see. This is a printout of it, so yours will be much nicer on better paper. But the certificate reads, this is a certificate of recognition presented to Mira Chukradio in honor of outstanding service as a valued member of the Instructional Quality Commission from 2022 through 2023. Your valuable contributions of time and expertise have been instrumental in furthering our mission to provide all children with quality and innovative educational materials so they can develop and achieve their full potential. I extend my sincere appreciation for the time and effort you have contributed to such a worthwhile endeavor, and this will be signed by the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond. Thank you so much for your service, Mira.
Thank you, Executive Director Torres. So Mira, that will be mailed along to your home, along with a plaque from the Sunshine Committee. Okay, you can expect that in the mail. Denise, do we have any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay, well, that was a great way to end this meeting. That concludes our agenda for the day. I now adjourn the meeting. Be safe, everyone.